One of our activities in this course is going to be working with literary criticism on texts that we're reading. So here we're going to talk a little bit about what literary criticism is and how you can engage with it as a critical reader. The term criticism is often viewed as inherently negative, but literary criticism is in fact just an interpretive analysis of a text. So this is work that you have already done in this course. And oftentimes literary criticism is published in scholarly journals. Sometimes we might see it in news outlets or magazines specializing in literature and things like that. So when someone creates literary criticism, they're making some sort of interpretive analysis, but they're also ensuring that their interpretation is connected to and supported by the text. Additionally, literary criticism does tend to be enriched by external perspectives. So it's not just about engaging with the text, but it's also about considering what other people have already said about the text. Because in that way, you're putting your own voice in conversation with others and you're becoming part of a larger body of work on whatever text it is that you happen to be working with. Literary criticism rather, is also often framed through a specific interpretive lens. And in many cases, this means a specific literary theory like the ones we've been working with so far and will continue to work with. So that's something to consider too, is that oftentimes literary critics are kind of filtering their responses in a very specific and focused way. So, what does it mean to engage with literary criticism? If you are reading an article that interprets a text and you are trying to get something specific out of it, what are sort of some best practices to approach that? So one thing that's a good starting point is to think about what the purpose or the thesis is. What is the big picture thing that the author is saying about the text, and what does their goal seem to be in doing so? You might also consider what kind of lenses are being applied. For example, does the analysis really seem to focus on gender representation or on commodification or something like that? From there, it's a good idea to think about what the core ideas are. In the context of writing composition, we might think of these as the subtopics, sort of really the main signposts throughout the piece. From there, you might want to consider how the ideas are developed and supported. Is the author doing a lot of engagement with outside sources? Are they focusing primarily on support from the primary text? These are things that can help you get a little bit of a better understanding about the author's methodologies and also what the potential strengths and weaknesses might be of the piece. So once you've gotten a sense of the core features of the piece, now you can start taking on a more evaluative and responsive role. So one thing to consider might be any potential weaknesses and how the author could have addressed them. And I think that being aware of those weaknesses can frame or inform how you respond to the piece of criticism. Another good thing to think about is what you agree with, what you disagree with, and why you feel that way. Because this is the beginning of you doing your own interpretation and situating those interpretations in conversation with what this other person has to say. And then, depending on what your goal is in reading and responding to this critique, you might respond in a more formal way. You might write your own paper or your own article or your own blog post where you respond to specific points and explain your reasoning in terms of why you feel the way you do about them. And that's kind of the work that we're going to be doing in this class. Is we're not just going to be looking at literary criticism, we're also going to be responding to it. And you're also going to be putting your ideas out there as well. So hopefully this gives you some good tools to engage with literary criticism texts, and I look forward to your thoughts as we work through different assignments and discussions.